Hi, my name is Victoria Bonelli, and I will be discussing with you United Airlines Flight 232 NTSB investigation. United Flight 232 was originally supposed to take off from Denver to Chicago on July 19, 1989. It is a DC-10 aircraft with 285 passengers and 11 crew members. Of the 11, we have 4 pilots off to the left and a few flight attendants on the right side of the screen. On the far left is Captain Al Haynes, and next to him is Bill Records, first officer, flight engineer Dudley Dovick, and then TCA agent Denny Finch. Initially, Denny Finch was a passenger on this DC-10. Upon understanding the emergency, he decided to offer his assistance. Accident timeline. So, at 15:16, about an hour into the flight from Denver, the number 2 engine exploded. So, as you can see along this direction of path, it exploded into initially a right turn. ATC call was at 15:20, indicating their emergency. The pilots, all 3, including the flight engineer, understood that upon that noise, they had a right wing down and a nose down attitude. They tried to correct with the flight control inputs, but could not. In order to correct, they realized that they had to adjust the throttles for the number 1 and the number 3 engines. About 15:29, Airman Finch arrived to the cabin after offering his assistance through a flight attendant to the captain. The captain agreed to accept his assistance. When he arrived, he saw both the captain and pilot's hands on the throttle and on the flight controls, so he offered to man the throttle, which the captain agreed with. Around 15:40, a flight attendant noticed some shrapnel along the wings. First officer asked the pilot if he could go check that out, and then understood that there was an issue with the horizontal stabilizers, which was why they were getting a right lean. Understanding that this entire time, while continuous flight is ongoing, they are trying to correct this right lean by reducing throttle. They're reducing throttle more along the number 1 side than the number 3 side, and adjusting so that they can maintain wings level. They have no airspeed control, and the only control that they can adjust is nose up and down with the throttle. They decide to do an emergency landing in Sioux City. In order to accomplish that, they have to get on an approach course, but they cannot turn left because of that right lean. So they conduct a few 360 turns in order to line up with the runway. ATC finally clears them to land. They conduct one more 360 because they're slightly off course, and then at 1600, United 232 crash lands. So upon the crash landing, the investigation started, and the main questions that they wanted to answer was, why did number 2 engine explode in midair? And then, based off of ATC recording and flight indications with the pilots, they understood that number 2 engine was out or not responsive, and hydraulics were not able to be utilized. So the NTC investigation started at the tail. They confirmed that based off the shrapnel and trajectory that the number 2 engine was definitely out, and that it disabled, obviously, the number 2 hydraulic, but then the rest of the hydraulics, they had to investigate that. Biggest part of the number 2 engine investigation started to become, where's the fan disc? The fan disc being, from the investigation's understanding, the biggest destructive force, and that it was not present at the crash site, led to a massive search. So the number 2 question, as indicated via radio calls between the pilots and ATC, they're saying that they had no hydraulic fluid and could not control the aircraft except through throttle adjustment. So where did the hydraulic fluid go? Well, number 2 hydraulic system went with the number 2 engine, and number 1 and 3 just happened to be crossed point right under the number 2 engine. Therefore, when the number 2 engine exploded, the shrapnel punctured or severed the number 1 and number 3 hydraulic system, resulting in 0 hydraulic fluid in the aircraft. And then coming back to the fan disc of the investigation. So what happened? Well, it was found 3 months later in a farmer's field, and it was broken in 2. The fatigue crack that initially started the break started from a small crack due to the pure titanium disc having oxygen and nitrogen. So after many startups and shutdowns of the number 2 engine, this oxygen, nitrogen, titanium mixture caused a crack, which then, after several courses of startups and shutdowns, caused this crack to form and become even larger. Well, there was inspections along this fan disc, but the inspections were not able to see this crack, and so this crack was inevitably going to explode and cause a break mid-flight. Metallurgists and forging were used to conduct experiments to understand that, yes, this is exactly what happened. The oxygen and nitrogen mixture was inadequate for this fan disc. The safety conclusion also indicated that the number 1 fan rotor system was malfunctioned, the number 2 engine fan rotor system malfunctioned, that the United Airlines maintenance and inspection team failed to correctly identify that the DC-10 hydraulic system, while redundant with 3 different systems, could not stop 0 hydraulic failure due to all being contained in the same area. And then number 4, the cabin safety infant system, so lap infant system, needed to be adjusted. So conclusion and today. The crew did everything right. They did their CRM correctly. Pilots maintained aircraft control. They verified with the United Airlines operations team, requested help. They had engineers on the line who verified everything they were doing was as correct as possible. They requested help of the check airman who was on board their flight, and flight attendants briefed the emergency crash with passengers, and they understood what they were supposed to do in an event of emergency. Unfortunately, at the time, passengers with lap infants were initially told to put lap infants on the cabin floor, and due to that fact, many infants flew out of their parents' hands because they were just braced against the floor. Shortly thereafter, in May 30th of 1990, FAA required a change to child restraints for lap infants. Additionally, the DC-10 production ended in 1989 and then stopped flying in 2014. For those still flying, they required that the titanium process be adjusted for the build of those fan belts, that it would be fired 3 more times so that no oxygen and nitrogen could get into the fans. They required inspections to actually be conducted more thoroughly along the fan belt, and then that hydraulic fuses be utilized to isolate the line. So therefore, that only a crash or magnitude which could take out the tail would cause a loss of all three fluids instead of a hopefully only one system failure at a time. That is my conclusion for this brief, and then my reference slide is indicated. I use NTSB report, and then History Today and Medium, as well as what we learned from the flight from a med article. Thank you for your time.